So you can see there what I was talking about with the oil filter. You can see this is the old style one. It's got a cartridge in there and we're going to put the spin on one. And basically all you do is put an aluminium adapter here. So Amir's just put on this new positive lead. And yeah, it's coming on. Amir and I were discussing this problem where fortunately it's not dented right in, and we will look at the new engine mounts, but there's 4 engine mounts. As you can see, there's a set here and then there's a set at the front. I think what they did is they've just lifted the car up on it to move it round, so hopefully it didn't, but they've obviously had a few attempts. You can see there we're going to have to clean up and so on. So if you remember back, I'll try and put a bit of film up, but if you remember back when we first picked it up from the paint shop, you remember that we couldn't turn the engine over, and so Amir was saying that's what's exactly happened is when they've punched. Sorry, can I just get you saying onto that a sec? Well, when this has been, you can see they've had a few attempts at it. There's brass coming through that drain plug there. There's one bin here, there's one bin here, and obviously a hit here as well. And what Mia's saying is, and it makes absolute sense now, when they push this up into the harmonic balancer, the rubber, that's why we couldn't turn the engine over, because it was jammed in there. And you know, I mean, it wasn't something I even thought about looking at. It just, did it come to? I mean, you know, who thinks an indicator is going to stop? You know, and because obviously we weren't sat under the car was down on the ground. So, you know, it's something we could have maybe thought about, but it just didn't occur to me that they would lift the bottom of the car or lift it on the sump. I mean, what kind of stupidity is that? But this is exactly what's happened, and this is why we couldn't turn it over, because it was dug into that rubber on that harmonic balancer. That's why we couldn't turn the engine over on the front pulley, but we could turn it over because we got the power from the ring gear, didn't we? So yeah, something to look out for, guys. Anyway, at least we know now what it is, but there's no point in me going back to them because they'll just deny it. They'll just say they didn't do it. You know, I mean, it's pretty obvious. You know, when we jack these cars, we always do it on either on the bottom suspension or we actually do it on the chassis, because the chassis is massive on this thing. But only a complete and utter buffoon would attempt to do it on the sump. I just don't get it. But there you go. Hey, there's plenty of them around, mate. There's been a few other things, but we won't go into it now. Okay, so I'm doing this voiceover because I wanted to do it in quick motion or whatever you call it, because it's 4 times the speed. So this is not teaching anybody to suck eggs, but if you've never used this Silent Co or anything, there's many different brands of this. And basically it's heat resistant and it's soundproofing as well. Now obviously this is a convertible car and doesn't need to have that much soundproofing, but what I'm explaining there is that I made that roller, and all it is a little paint roller, and I just chopped a piece of broom handle off and drilled a hole in it. But one of the things about doing this, if you can, always try and line up the holes first and pre-punch them before you take the paper off. Because if you try to cut them afterwards, it makes a bit of a mess and it tears, you know. So okay, in this next piece, I've got pretty much one side of it done, and it's very easy to cut this stuff with a Stanley knife or whatever. That piece there is actually what would have been for the solenoid on the Moss box, because it had an overdrive unit. And I'm not sure if the carpet's going to have that bulge in it. If the reason I'm doing it separately is I can put a flat plate in there if the bulge isn't there. So again, it's that situation where if you can, try to do everything you can dry, so that you'll know it's going to go on and it's going to fit. Because, as I said, cutting these holes out afterwards is quite a messy thing. So there's another situation here where I just actually put the bend in the 90 for the flange, work out where it needs to be, cut the excess off here, and yeah, and get it, and basically just get it all lined up so it's easy to fit, and there's a lot less cutting to do when it's actually on. And you can see at that angle is not
right, it's square. I have to cut that at 90 degrees, which you'll see in the next part of the video. So this is me now taking that particular piece. I've cut the angle on it, the 90, as you can see there. Punch the holes out. Because if you pre-punch the holes, basically what you can do is then you can use them to line up the piece, because you know you've got it in the right place. It isn't a massive deal to for certain panels. If you want to stop drumming, to have them just not touching each other, but obviously the better the insulation is, the sound reduction is going to be better, and the heat reduction is going to be better. You know, it's as simple as that. So yeah, quite an easy job to do. This is obviously is a gearbox tunnel, so there's a bit more shape to it, and the floors are an absolute doddle to do. As I said, as long as you pre-cut everything. But you'll be seeing in the next video, or the next few videos, where I do the floor, and I actually do the metal floor in the back of the XK, because it all needs doing. I'm just not sure exactly on some of the pieces exactly when I need to go, so I need to do a bit of research on that. Okay, so there we are, it's all done. I can make sure now that it checks out on those flanges. We'll put the floors back in. Quite complicated on that particular thing, but like I said, with the floors it's a doddle. And I say, just use a bit of heat, but not too much, otherwise the glue will start oozing out and you'll get it all over the roller. And like I said, this is just a normal paint roller, but with a bit cut off a brush, and then a hole drilled in it. Made it into. I think you can actually buy them, but it's just as quick to make it. So, here we are, another job done.